Ever tried to break a bad habit? You swear you're finally done. You maintain it for a while, but then stress hits, you slip up, and suddenly you're right back where you started. It's a psychological trap that makes you feel like you're spinning your wheels. That specific cycle of failure drives the entire narrative of the Book of Judges. It's the seventh book of the Hebrew Bible, picking up immediately after the death of Joshua, the military leader who led the Israelites across the Jordan. Israel has entered the land, but looking at these tribal borders, it's clear they are far from a unified nation. The 12 tribes are geographically fragmented, living in isolated pockets across the hill country. Scattered between these tribes are the very people they were supposed to drive out. These ancient stone ruins are the remains of Canaanite city-states. Instead of conquering the land, the Israelites settled down as neighbors to an entrenched culture that would eventually swallow them. This created a massive leadership vacuum. Joshua left no successor. For the first time, Israel has no king, no central government, and no unified military strategy to protect its borders. The book summarizes this era of decentralization with one repeating thesis: everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Without a central authority or a shared moral compass, the tribes are left highly vulnerable. The lack of a king doesn't lead to freedom, it leads to a spiritual and political vacuum that the Canaanites are happy to fill. The Book of Judges is structured around a 4-step historical pattern that repeats for centuries: apostasy, oppression, supplication, and deliverance. The cycle begins with apostasy. The Israelites abandon their covenant with God and begin adopting the idols and religious practices of the Canaanites living among them. In response, God removes his protection, allowing foreign powers to invade and oppress the tribes. Years of suffering eventually forces them to cry out for help. This is the supplication stage, which prompts God to send deliverance. That deliverance comes in the form of a judge. In this context, a judge isn't a courtroom official. They are charismatic tribal warlords. These are military leaders raised up to rally the tribes and break the foreign occupation. However, these victories are temporary. Because the rescue is purely military, it fails to address the underlying spiritual corruption. As soon as a judge dies, the people drift right back into the same patterns. The 2D cycle is a deceptive image. In reality, the nation is moving down a tightening spiral, losing its moral footing with every rotation. Near the top of the spiral is the judge Deborah. She is a prophetess and a morally sound leader who coordinates a clean military campaign to liberate the northern tribes. Leadership quality drops as the book moves to the next generation. Gideon wins a major battle, but he is characterized by deep cowardice. After his victory, he takes the plunder of the war and builds his own golden idol, leading his family into the very apostasy he was supposed to stop. The marker drops further as we reach Jephthah. He is a marginalized gang leader who knows so little about God that he makes a horrific, unnecessary vow before a battle, a blind promise that ends in the death of his only daughter. We hit the bottom of the spiral with Samson. As this engraving shows, Samson was a man of immense physical power, capable of tearing lions apart with his bare hands and slaughtering entire armies alone. But his physical strength is a mask for total moral bankruptcy. Samson is a failed Nazirite, a man who breaks his sacred vows for lust and personal revenge. He doesn't fight the Philistines to save Israel. He fights them because they offended him personally. The resumes of these heroes act as a barometer for the nation. As these leaders become more violent, selfish, and compromised, the entire Israelite society completely sinks down with them. The spiral eventually shatters. By the end of the book, the Israelites are so deeply assimilated into the pagan culture that they stop crying out to God entirely. The structured cycle of repentance and rescue simply stops. The final chapters contain no deliverers and no judges. They are a record of unchecked moral decay, featuring stories of kidnapping, cults, and localized violence that the tribes have no way to stop. This decay culminates in a brutal civil war. The tribes turn the weapons they once used against their oppressors against each other, nearly wiping out the tribe of Benjamin in a spasm of internal violence. The book ends exactly where it began, but in a much darker reality. The final verse leaves us with a haunting observation. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. The experiment in total moral subjectivity ends here. When everyone defines right for themselves, the result isn't freedom, it's the complete collapse of the social order. This is a deliberate cliffhanger. The tribes are shattered, the leadership is bankrupt, and the narrative leaves the audience waiting for a righteous king who can finally pull the nation out of the dark.